Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Lori Hale. So while I was sitting with the Lord the other day, He showed me an issue that is occurring right now in the church with quite a few believers. He's touched on this topic before, but spoke at length about it in this word I'm releasing today. Before we get started, just a quick reminder. If you haven't already visited our website, please go to mychoiceslife.com, where you'll find ways that you can join your voice with others in one of the most important battles of our day. So when the Lord first began to speak to me concerning today's word, I had a vision in which I saw the children of Israel. And the Lord then highlighted 1 Samuel 8, where the Israelites make a demand that they be given an earthly king. Now, during that time, the prophet Samuel was God's chosen judge over Israel. The role of judges in ancient Israel was much different than what we think of as a judge today. The judges were not only spiritual leaders and judicial heads of Israel, but also military leaders as well. For example, we see this in Gideon and his 300. Judges were not only tasked with overseeing the affairs of the nation, but also contending with the people against their enemies. It says at the beginning of this chapter that because Samuel was in the latter days of his life, he appointed his own sons to be judges over the nation. However, in verse 3, we learn that Samuel's sons were corrupt, taking bribes and perverting justice. The Israelites realized that Samuel's sons would not look out for the nation's best interests, and so could not be trusted with its governance, which caused the people to have some real concerns about their future and who would lead them. Having grown discontent with the Lord's structure of government, they demanded a change. Instead of remaining under the Lord's direct leadership, they insisted that a visible, tangible king be installed to rule over them. In reality, Israel rejected their true king and opted instead to put their trust in a man. The underlying reasons for the Israelites' request were, first of all, that the physical presence of a king would give them a greater sense of security. It says in verse 20 that the Israelites wanted a king so he could not only lead, but fight their battles for them, eliminating their responsibility for that role. Also, if the Israelites were out from under God's system of government, they would then be free to live like the pagans and worship as they desired. And even though Samuel warned the Israelites that negative consequences would arise from being ruled by an earthly king, the people still insisted. And so the Lord eventually gave them what they wanted. The Lord then drew a parallel between this story of the Israelites and what is happening today in a large portion of the church. What he showed me is that because of the obvious abuse of position and authority happening in our current government, that same sense of uncertainty about the future can be found in the hearts of many believers. And because the Lord hasn't come through as they had hoped, these believers have settled into a place of discontentment. And so they too are looking to an earthly king as the one who will fight their battles for them. I then saw these believers taking their spiritual authority and their responsibility as watchmen over America and dumping it right into President Trump's lap. And then I heard this. Then just as it was with my children from long ago, who demanded I give them an earthly king, so too can that same desire be found in and amongst the current assembly of the elect in America. For discontentment dwells in the hearts of these children. Thus are they not satisfied with having me alone reign as their sovereign king. And as such, are they more than ready to re-elect that man Trump to the Oval Office as the one they've chosen to fill the role of their would-be king. For they think him still to be a vessel anointed by me, and so are they willing to compromise with evil and thus relinquish their God-given authority in order to see him reinstated as their president. But have these children not yet considered the greater implications that this choice to agree with evil shall cause? For if their collective voice votes yes to that man Trump in his pro-abortion stance, whether or not he is re-elected, still shall there be a shift of authority in the spiritual sense. For when these believers make public their assent through the casting of their vote, then they have entered into an agreement with the darkness to which Trump has partnered, and thus have given it permission to remain in this nation. Yet will most simply cast their vote without giving any thought to the spiritual ramifications that shall occur from their decision to support Trump. Nonetheless shall it be that the church in America will once again hinder her own effectiveness against the prevailing darkness in this nation. For when my children compromise with any kind of wickedness, like that of abortion, they form a partnership with the demonic forces attached to that act of sinfulness, and as such, their power over it is severely diminished. And so shall the practice of infanticide continue throughout America, as those who should be rushing to the defense of the preborn have abdicated their responsibility, and thus are willing to allow for the continued slaughter of an untold number of innocent human lives upon Moloch's altars, if it means securing their own future. So it is that these believers have convinced themselves that Trump must be voted into office regardless of his stance on abortion, for they believe that it is only through him that America's prosperity can be restored, and as such are they willing to overlook this obvious failing in his judgment. And like a king who is idolized by his loyal subjects, has Trump become to these of my children. In their eyes, he can do no wrong, and so are excuses made for his public missteps and verbal blunders. For these think his motivation for seeking re-election is more selfless than it actually is, as he is thought not to be cut from the same kind of cloth as are most politicians, and therefore in him have these believers put their trust, having enshrined him like a king upon the throne of their hearts. So though it is my own who have been called to contend against the evils of this present age, yet because, in a large portion of the church in America, there dwells a reluctance to actually make a stand and wage war against the enemy's forces, it is to this man Trump that these children have looked to fix what is ailing this country. For in their estimation, surely he will know how to set things back into right order, and thus restore that which was once thought of as normal, where life returns to its previous state, and thus resumes a similar ebb and flow to that which existed prior to the pandemic, and before that impostor commandeered the White House. Yet what once was cannot be recaptured, even if that man Trump is reelected, for progress itself has made that a virtual impossibility. However, amongst the elect, is there an overwhelming majority who are hoping he will make the impossible a reality. So even though he has changed his stance on abortion and has publicly stated he is running on a pro-choice platform, these believers have decided to give him a pass on that matter. For to them, the most important issues of the day are the restoration of peace and financial prosperity back to this nation. See then have these children rationalized their decision to continue supporting Trump by convincing themselves that because the battle over abortion won't end tomorrow, this fight can be fought another day. Therefore, it is the economy and other important national matters that must first be righted before addressing the issue of abortion. And so they believe Trump to be the right man for that job. For like King Midas, surely he is gifted with the ability to generate wealth from whatever he touches. Thus are these believers unwilling to even consider that their decision to support Trump and his pro-abortion platform to be a mistake, one that shall have lasting repercussions even unto the coming generations. Yet do I say to the elect in America, do not be so quick to jump upon the bandwagon which favors another Trump presidency, even though this may seem right to you. For as of now, he has ventured out from under my covering, and just as it was with Saul, who made a hasty decision that led to the removal of my anointing, so is it again with that man named Trump, as his refusal to change his pro-abortion stance has set him in direct opposition to me. For I will not be party in any way to the murdering of the preborn. Hear me then, beloved, all you who are ready to throw your hat in the ring for Trump. Stand down now, for I have not issued the order to offer him your support. Examine then your hearts, as more than a few of you can be found even now, idolizing that man, and thus have you begun to think of him more like a king. If this is true of you, then repent, for it is only I alone who should be esteemed as king over your life. And though you cannot yet rightly discern how my will for America shall be accomplished without that man Trump retaking the Oval Office, I am still able to fulfill all that was promised, and even more. However, to see the continued unfolding of my plan come to fruition in this generation of the church, my children must come into agreement with what I am saying now, and that being, do not vote for Trump as long as he chooses to maintain the pro-abortion position he has taken. Give an emphatic no when asked if you will choose to support him. For a clear message must be sent by the elect, both to Trump and the demonic voices to which he has partnered, which is, that my children will not concede the ground on this matter of abortion. No compromise, no exceptions, no middle ground. For the only option they will support is the right to life and nothing else. Then do I say, beloved, do not be so keen on that man named Trump, for he is merely a man, just as are you. Therefore, do not prop him up in your hearts like an idol, and thus believe him to be the rescuer of this nation, for he is not. It is I, and I alone, the one who reigns supreme, and the only true king, who is able to save this country known as America. So though you should be found interceding on behalf of that man Trump, so that his heart is swayed over to a pro-life stance, it is in me alone that you should put your trust, unequivocally and without any reservations, even when what you are seeing and hearing in the temporal sense tells you to do otherwise. Stand then without flinching, in unwavering faith, in the knowing that the one who saved you from the pit is more than able to save this nation, even without that man named Trump re-elected as president. Thus is there no reason to compromise on your beliefs. Therefore, do not accept the lie that making a concession with evil is your only option. Tell Trump no, and then simply stand, confident that I will come through on your behalf. Thanks again for joining me today.